What's going on, Leo? We got first we're gonna do the card description, and then we're gonna do the actual reading itself, right? And this particular card was pulled from the Herbal Astrology Oracle deck by Adriana Ayales. And this particular card is Yarrow, which is harmony, equilibrium, balance, discernment, neuropsychic shield, divinatory empathy, sensitivity. The Latin name for Yarrow comes from the hero of the Greek myth Achilles, who was said to give Yarrow to his soldiers to heal wounds, staunch bleeding during the Trojan War. Embraced back thousands of years in healing practices, including Ayurveda, the traditional Chinese medicine, and Native American practices. In Spain, a 50,000-year-old Neanderthal skull was found with traces of yarrow in their teeth. Yarrow's historical use in as a divinatory flower is extensive. In China, yarrow stalks are gathered, and the straightest ones are collected for scattering to read the divinatory I Ching, called devil's nettle or devil's plaything in European traditions. It was one of the herbs dedicated to the evil one, used for divinations and spells. Ruled by Venus, yarrow is said to provide relief from patterns of disharmony and help cleanse one of unhealthy sorrow or trickling depression. Yarrow embodies harmony, a key concept of Venusian symbology. The balancing force, represented by Libra, one of Venus's rulers, is an appropriate metaphor for how harmonizing yarrow is as a medicine. What? Let me read that again. The balancing force, represented by Libra, one of Venus's ruler, is an appropriate metaphor for how harmonizing yarrow is as a medicine. Venus, as the archetypal manifestation of beauty and aesthetics, also represents self-love, unity, and empathy. This is the guidance portion. If you're feeling emotionally drained or too sensitive for today's world, it's time to set solid boundaries to regain balance. Use your empathic abilities as grounding cords to your psychic powers and divinatory skills. Allow your sensitivity to be a filter for what is allowed within your psychic field and what isn't. Like the magic of the white heron, move slowly with precision as you navigate emotional waters. Heron teaches us the power of self-reflection as a way to transcend judgmental projections and low self-worth. Draw clear boundaries and examine yourself from a detached perspective. Don't blame situations or others as a reason to remain stuck. Yarrow's white light teaches us the powers of shielding while remaining gentle in the process of self-discovery. Okay, so a few things. I think first off, I forgot the actual association with Achilles for a second. So that was the first thing. I was like really, at first I was like, hey, if this is, it's kind of a moment where I was like, hey, if this is the message, I'm going to see what happens and what comes about. But the idea of Achilles, and this being for those that don't know, the story of Achilles is that his body was dipped in yarrow, and basically everything but his heel, because that was used to actually dip Achilles in yarrow, and the idea is that he was vulnerable there. This idea of yarrow, it's a plant, and I want you guys to understand that this is really something that I'm getting really through, well, just understanding the Venusian, rulership of Yarrow, right? When it comes down to your particular idea of how you allow creativity to flow, if you allow creativity to flow, if you are allowing creativity to flow, this is something that is important. This idea of Leo, of course, is associated with creativity, fun, exuberance, things like that, but the way you allow that creativity to kind of flow out, having a good channel for that, that's another thing you need to worry about. That's another thing you need to kind of see as more of a so, I am not a medical professional, but something that is prescribed to you by somebody. What is this particular outlet in terms of how I'm using the creativity that I have naturally available to me, right? How am I using that? How am I really, really bringing new things into the world? Really start to think about that and start to understand the different ways in which you can do that, because poetry, music, and everything else, poetry, music, and there are painting, art in general, those are Venusian things. And there's a natural understanding that you may very well have in terms of this world of what can I manifest here. Do that, take that, and don't just sit on it, but actually start to make that a thing. And this idea of that vulnerability in the story of Achilles, this type of vulnerability could be very much because of you not actually taking that opportunity to expand your actual exercise those muscles of creativity in the right way. So see how maybe you may not be doing that, right? See how that is something that you may need to look at. And also this idea of, the wounds that it can heal in general, how you can heal those wounds. Understand that this is this outlet could help you in so many different ways, right? It's not something like you have to. You very much. I mean, there could be very, very much energy for you to do that, right? Especially if you're already kind of in the arts as well, but also if you just have that natural ability to pull that out of you, you should definitely take a look at it. But this doesn't necessarily have to be for the full-time artist. This can be for someone who simply starts to exercise that muscle and gain the benefits in places to where it may not be immediately apparent. This idea of what it does, what Yarrow does. I'm looking at this idea of being used for divination and spells. What do you have that is really, really like what do you have that could be translated to be more nourishing for your psychic shield, right? That's the idea here. What do you have that could be simply translated, right? Because we need to understand how we're expending energy and how that energy can be better used in another place in certain cases. So that could definitely be something that you need to start to look at, need to start to understand, and take responsibility for, because there's this, this idea of whatever the the divination portion of this, where they talk about herbs dedicated to the evil one and used in divinations and spells. This is, you guys should understand something. There is a polarity when it comes down to things that we do and how it can be used in another sense, and how it, like, for instance, the idea of addiction, right? I talked about this earlier, but the idea of addiction, you need to understand that the people who overcome things like addiction, it's a very malefic energy. A lot of people who are in the worst cases, they can just be really defined as very sick, right? Very sick in terms of actually there's a very real mental illness associated with that. But in overcoming that, and being able to overcome that element of addiction in general, there's calluses that form, things that they, of course they have a tool set after getting over addiction to not fall into addiction again, but the calluses, the how they grow, how they develop, they don't quite see that in every case. They don't quite understand that in every single case. But there are things that the way they benefit is not immediately apparent, right? And the things that they have natural resistance built to, right? So like the idea of like taking a vaccine, for instance, the idea of what they now have been vaccinated against, you won't necessarily understand that in a lot of cases, but it's very much there. And when I think about this idea of nearing like the revitalization that can also take place when you start to exercise that creativity, is something that can help you when it comes down to anybody coming close to burnout. When it comes down to anybody coming close to, hey, I don't think I can quite do this anymore. That outlet could be a refresher for you, a very deep refresher that helps you, give you a new burst of energy to make new decisions and come into new opportunities. So don't take that lightly. And just kind of like when I took the card out and I seen the idea of Venus associated with Yarrow, I did take it lightly. I did take it like, oh, I gotta like, I wanted to kind of see like more like warrior card or something like that. That's kind of what I was going for. And I just seen Yarrow. I was like, oh man, well, I mean, if this is the message and this and that, I guess this is it. But there was a message, not only just a random message, a message that started and understood with the warrior, how that warrior was vulnerable due to not having full protection of this particular card that I pulled. So understand that these things that we're talking about, like, we need to start to reevaluate how we really utilize the energy that we're really have available to us. And I'm really hoping that you start to do that. and we'll continue to do that. If anything, I'm gonna end this here. I'll see you guys next week, and just have a good week.